to open the meeting tonight at 6:13. Today's November 15th, Wednesday, at Admin Building, town. Public comment? Bob? Yeah. Okay. Do you have any public comments? No public. Okay. Make a motion to approve last month's minutes. So, and review them.
Motion to approve minutes. I second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous. Consideration. Do we have any consideration addition to the agenda tonight? Okay.
Wait. No. Good.
You good? Okay.
Wait. I'm just kidding.
But you can, if you think of it, it's okay.
This has been a long day.
Okay, so someone make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Who was the second? Second.
Kelly. Let's see. Reports from officers and workers, homeowners, equity, because I don't know Tracy.
That's me. All right. So, the Homeownership Equity Initiative is a collective impact initiative pulled together by Bright Community Trust as the backbone organization and the Homeownership Equity Collective. That is a group of organizations, including nonprofits, government, corporate entities, different people from throughout the home buying universe that we pulled together. Kicked this off in February of this year to plan this initiative. We received funding from Wells Fargo of $150,000 for the planning process to create an initiative to close the homeownership gap. The goal of this initiative is to develop 5,000 new homeowners of color over the next 5 years in Central Florida, and that includes Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and Lake counties. There are 4 strategy teams that pull this plan together. There's a team called Places that is responsible for determining what homes will be built, how they will be built, who will build them, how it's going to get funded. We're not planning to build 5,000 new homes, but we are planning to be responsible for the building of new starter homes in the community, because that is missing from our area. Most people starting on the homeownership journey cannot afford the new luxury builds that are being built in our area. So we're looking at starter homes, townhomes, condos, different types of homeownership opportunities. So the Places strategy team is focused on that. We have a strategy team around policy. In their responsibility is creating opportunities for these new types of building. If it's zoning changes that need to be made for townhomes and condos in areas that are not necessarily zoned for that. We've talked about things like tiny homes, manufactured homes, and things like that. So working with our legislators on policy around those things and on helping to break down some of the homeownership equity barriers that exist. We have another strategy team focused on funding, because Wells Fargo provided the funding for the planning of the initiative. We still need funding for the implementation of the initiative. So the funding team is working on how we develop those funds. And then we have a team focused on preparation of the actual home buyers. So we've done financial empowerment classes to help stabilize people's financial situation. We've created a pathway that helps people get from where they are to actual home ownership. And we have an assessment that will determine where they fall in that pathway and what resources they need to get them to homeownership so that we can match them with those resources. We've created a community partnership directory of resources that includes realtors, lenders, assessors, home maintenance people, housing counselors, you name it, whatever. So credit counseling, debt management, all the people that would be helpful to people buying a home. So we have that directory. And then we also are providing coaches, which I'll talk about in a minute, to help walk alongside them through the process. And so the preparation team has done a lot of work on that, and also recruiting homeowners, potential homeowners to participate. So I think that's all 4 of the strategy teams. The reason for this initiative, as I mentioned, is to close the homeownership gap. In Central Florida, 76% of white households are homeowners, 50% of Black households, and 52% of Latino households are homeowners. So we want to be able to close that gap, create more economic opportunity for households of color, create more generational wealth, and help infuse more capital into our communities through homeownership and create more stable housing. I know Commissioner has worked on affordable housing and trying to stabilize rents and things like that are just going out of control. And we know that homeownership is much more stable than renting, certainly in these last few years. So providing those opportunities for people. So this first flyer is information about the initiative itself. There is a QR code that takes you to a contact us page if you're interested in being a homeowner, if you're interested in being a partner, a donor, a coach. There are a number of different ways that you can engage with the initiative through this QR code. There's also our website at the bottom from our organization that has information on the initiative, and we are just about done with the website for the initiative specifically. We've had some technical difficulties with the domain, but I think they've gotten that on this figured out. The second flyer is the flyer for the coaches. We will need coaches because what we want to make sure is that each person that participates in this process has someone to walk alongside them through the process. It can be very daunting and overwhelming. I went to a training called the 15 Steps of Homeownership. I am a homeowner, and I was like, how many steps? So there are a lot of them, and a lot of times people do them in the wrong order. Many people, when they decide they want to buy a house, the first thing they do is go find the house. So they go, house hunting, and they look and find the house they love. They have no idea if they can afford that house. As opposed to going to get approved for a mortgage, so you know how much you're approved for and how much you can afford, and then looking for a home that fits in that price range. So trying to help people understand the steps, the right order, and all those things. The coaches won't be the ones responsible for that part as much as serving as the cheerleaders to keep them going through the process as they go through the steps. If they get stuck and they need some assistance with finding resources to get to the next step, connecting them with those resources and keeping them going through the process. We feel like that's going to be a significant thing that's going to help people get all the way through, because a lot of people start the process and they get to various steps along the way and run into roadblocks and they just give up. So we want to really help people get all the way through the process. So we are taking coaches. The original thought was people that have been through the home buying process who have some experience with it. That's not a requirement. If you're just someone that really wants to see people get into home ownership and feel like you can kind of cheer them and guide them along the process, that's wonderful. Training will be provided. Our first training session will be December 8th from 9 to noon. And the time commitment we're looking for is 12 to 18 months, knowing that home buying is not a quick process. It's not like you walk into a shoe store and walk out with your shoes, especially if you're buying a new home. even if you're ready, it takes a little while. But knowing that a lot of the people that we're working with will not be ready right now to purchase on it. So wanting our coaches to be aware that this could be a likely time commitment for them to work with their participants. And coaches will have up to 5 participants to work with at a time. I think that those are all the points that I wanted to make sure to share with you all. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you have an organization that you're working with that provides mortgages?
We have several. So as I mentioned, we have the community partner directory. In the Homeownership Equity Collective, we have a number of different banks and at least 1 or 2 CDFIs. And so those are some of the partners that are just many. One of the things that I will mention for our directory is we're trying to make sure that the people in the directory are vetted. So most of the things that we're talking about already exist. We're not creating new lenders or new, down payment assistance programs or any of those things. They already exist, but they're all over the place, and you have to know what you're looking for and know where to find it. So what we're trying to do is bring all those services into a centralized place where it's easier to get connected to them. So we're talking to lenders, to your point, to your question, and making sure that the people that we're referring people to are willing to work with clients that some of whom may need some extra attention. So we don't want to send someone into a lender, have them, the first thing they do is pull their credit and say, nope, your credit's not good enough, go away and come back when it is. We want to send them to people that are willing to work with them and say, okay, your credit may be a little lower than we can work with, but here are some strategies you can do to improve it, and here are some people that can help you with that. And then we'll work with you through that process. And then that way when you're ready, we're ready, everybody's ready. So to your question. But yes, we do have lenders that we're working with.
Do you have like a capacity limit on how many people you can have in the program at once?
We don't, as of this time. The goal is 5,000 over 5 years. We know that it would be nice if that was even, 1,000 every year. It's not going to work that way. It's going to take some time to ramp up. We kind of looked at, demographics and neighborhood counties and all those types of things. And we anticipated the first year probably starting with around 400 people, and each year growing and adding more people. And we're starting with a pilot program in the beginning. So we're looking to work with 25 people initially between now and March, just because of the holidays. We thought 3 months was a good time frame, but because of the holidays, we had a little bit of time. Just to make sure we worked out all the kinks and the coaching, the ways that we want to work, the pathway we set it out makes sense. But as many people, if we get more than 5,000 homeowners, that's awesome. One of the questions that we're asking of the people that we're putting in the directory is what is their capacity to work with clients? So that is an important question because I don't want to send 50 clients to a housing counselor that only has the capacity for 15. So we're asking that question so that we can to their capacity as we're referring to it. The questions?
So what efforts or what avenues are you using to bring community awareness of this program?
Good question. We've got a number of organizations that are working with us on the collective that already have potential. So for example, we have realtors that have been working with us throughout this process. They all have clients that have done what I said, they're shop for housing, they're not qualified. Some are not qualified at all, some are not qualified. They found a $500,000 home they love, but they're all qualified. So that, and the same with lenders that are trying to get them qualified. So that's kind of our initial low-hanging fruit for those realtors and lenders and even nonprofit partners that have already started working with people that are looking to get into homeownership. and, you know, encouraging them to send them to us, and we can help get them to where they need to be, so that they're qualifying for mortgage that they want. Habitats, we're working with all the habitats in the Fort County area, so this is, you know, this works with their model, and they have people that sometimes aren't necessarily qualified for the habitat that they're working with, because they have different income levels, but we may be able to get them qualified if outside of habitat. So initially, those are the people that we're working with, and then we're going to be doing community outreach events, and we're already going to resource fairs. We were at 2 different fairs last weekend, to Jobs Partnership Resource Fair. So we're going to be reaching out to community partners, faith-based organizations, other nonprofits, realtors, lenders, you know, again, all the people that work in the home buying universe that right now have people, because my partner works for a builder in Boston. What do you do when someone wants to buy a house but they're not qualified? He's like, you don't really have anything, you know, to do with them, because we can't work with them if they're not qualified. So to us, we can work with them to get them qualified. So there are lots of different avenues of it.
There's the Florida Realtor Association. They have a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what their funding's, but they're always looking for initiative and projects to fund.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, most realtors have to be part of that association. So there's a lot of things that happen, and which is kind of what funds this foundation. But yes, I would explore that avenue,
Okay.
and see if this is one, an initiative that they can allocate some funding for,
Right.
and 2, get the word out with all those realtors that are licensed, or you know, through that.
Right. We've worked with the Orlando Regional Realtor Association, not necessarily with the Florida Association, but we can certainly reach out to them. And there are 2, there's the NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, that is a Black Realtor Association, and then NAREB, which is the Hispanic Realtor Association. So we're engaging with them as well.
Given, we work with the housing authorities when it comes to, because what I see is a bunch of slots here, with like 450 slots. And the housing authority, a lot of people who don't necessarily meet the qualifications, or just make too much or whatever, they're still can't afford to buy it. So,
Yeah. We have reached out to them. We have not engaged them directly yet, but we definitely have reached out to them. And we're talking about there is a way to use Section 8 vouchers for homeownership. So we're definitely talking about that.
trying to get additional funds, so like Habitat has additional, like we have lands, cities and stuff that Habitat could take ownership and build sort of like a condo townhome or something like that.
We are the Places group right now is collecting information on the surplus lots. With a Live Local Act, they have to make their information public. They're collecting that information. Actually, we meet next Friday with them, so we should hear a little bit of information about what's available in terms of the surplus lots and both what they're doing with the homeowners that they're working with and those homeowners that don't qualify for the program. And we may be able to get more.
Tax sales and stuff for people who buy out properties.
I don't know that we've talked about that, so I will bring that up to the Places group. It's very rare that they like. Yeah. At this point, we'll look at any and all options.
Yeah, because if we can find old properties and we can have tax issues or abandoned for some reason, you know, if there's any ownership, then maybe we can get organizations to grab the property. We, you know, either knock it down, redevelop it,
Yeah.
you know, especially in the neighborhoods that the homes are built in larger lots, we can definitely upsize, put a couple of homes on the spot, maybe town, whatever.
Mhm.
So the objective is housing, good housing.
Yeah.
And density.
What other thoughts or questions?
When is your program kicking off?
When is it kicking off? So we're kind of in soft launch mode right now. We're going to officially kick off in a big way in January. Again, the holidays are just, messing things up. We're trying to get our report written and ready to give out the full report. So we will officially kick off in mid to late January, but we're doing kind of soft launch now. Any questions and thoughts?
Thank you. I think my question was also in the direction of the realtors. I think you might have actually answered some of my question with your words in regards to the realtors. That you have been in touch with them for certain questionnaire.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Yes.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to present. Anybody has any further questions?
Bob, did you want to?
Bob,
Yeah, I was wondering if your program is such as, Emily, is there money in the budget from the county that's dedicated to housing as such? And has that money been allocated? I've sort of lost track of it as such, and I was wondering if that can be used, just given outright to this group as far as funding for the mortgages as such, because I would think that's going to be an issue as such, as far as money availability. Not only do they qualify, but is there going to be money in the pot reference their qualifications as such?
That's a good question. Well, you all have the group. Is there any financial support?
well, the mayor has that initiative. How's that fit into this?
It's not played in directly yet. We have, we do have a representative from the county housing department serving on one of our strategy teams. We've not talked about any funding from the county for the initiative, but all of those things are on the table.
Who is our advisory board for that housing committee, for that money? Do they have a public, is it just the mayor's big decisions?
So the money that we are putting aside is for subsidizing affordable housing. I think there is some money though put aside for home ownership and stuff like that, but I have to look into it.
I think one of the things that we discussed in our housing committee is a lot of the housing stock that the county funded over the last 30 years is coming. They did collaborative with private entities, and so after 30 years, it reverts back to the private entity. So
Right.
we're losing housing that way.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
somehow we
looks
got
like a federal program.
we got to live and learn not to do that again. Somehow we got to make sure that the housing stays affordable forever. For instance, my little brother just got approved to get a habitat in Seattle. And exactly what I described is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They got this land and building up townhomes. Got this right here. We think typical habitat, but it's a program to bring this forward. Sorry.
The affordable housing. Yeah, so we are looking at, because you're right, you're exactly right. There are a lot of.
What his require, and this is why I think it's important. In his deed, he can sell the home someday, but he can't make it. It's set on a certain scale of profit. It doesn't say you can't make a profit, but you can't triple or quadruple. Because I go to the house in my neighborhood was subsidized by HUD. Half the homes or so do people that were subsidized. But the problem is, after 10 years, they can sell that at full cost, which is great. But it now is out of the market of affordability for most people.
That is one of the things that we're looking at is those properties that are losing their affordability, because there are some that had 10 years of affordability. There are several that have 30 years of affordability. So we're looking at those my organization is a community land trust, and so we provide that affordability to residential.
Yeah, it's a 99-year lease for the dollar.
That's renewable for another 99 years. So that provides that affordability in perpetuity. So we are looking at whether we could take some of those properties that are losing their affordability into the land trust to be able to maintain that affordability. And you're right, if someone were to purchase a land trust home, they can sell it and they keep part of the equity and we keep part of the equity so that we can make it affordable for the next person. And that's how we maintain it.
Just, there's the argument, well, they don't get the true value of the home, the market. Or to go what the program is to try to continue. So I don't know where the balance is that, but I would see there's a downside for someone buying that. Yes, they get a home, but they're not going to get a bump of massive equity. But I'm not a person, I don't think it's going to last much longer because we can't provide homes anymore.
And the other side of that is the reason that someone would buy a home like that is because without that affordability, they would not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So some equity is better than
No.
renting for this.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work for those people who can afford a fee simple home, we encourage that.
Yeah.
We have ways that we can also help people do that.
It stabilizes too, so you don't get massive rent increases.
Right.
So have you savings.
Absolutely
The rents are going up.
ridiculous.
Crazy.
So is there anything that this board can do to help support?
Definitely. So one of the things that the board can do to support is help us to recruit coaches, because we're going to need those that the kind of bluish flyer. And if you all are interested in being coaches, other people who might be able to help spread the word. I can send the flyer to Alexis electronically and she can share it with everyone. So helping to recruit coaches, any suggestions on funding opportunities, that is absolutely helpful. Any
Funding as in giving to mortgages or funding as in the organization needs funding?
funding for the initiative. And referring potential home buyers. Those are probably the top 3 things. And
We get stuff at public radio or get on their talk shows and stuff.
we have not started that yet. We will now that we're
Yeah.
kicking off the initiative, but we will definitely do that as well.
Some public service announcements that would be great for nonprofits.
We want to B, which is the tourist development tax.
All right, so tourism development tax.
Things had some cool talk.
Yeah. Let's see, where did we leave off last? Well, we funded a couple of projects. I think that's where it left off last time. Since then, we had a meeting on Visit Orlando and their funding. I've definitely learned a lot about how that went down. So I guess we had a contract back in 2007, and over the years, there was 9 amendments made to it, which added more transparency, but also increased some of the funding that they were getting, but not to the point where in 2019 they got 30% of the funding. So we're up to like $350 million in collections, and they get 30% of that. So back in 2016, because it was while Jacobs was still in office, there was actually a letter sent to her from the CHFLA. I think that's their, I always get you mixed up, but it's the Center for Florida Hoteliers, right? Asking for 30% for Visit Orlando. So they were pushing for that, sent that memo to Mayor Jacobs. Well, she said no. Then 2019 comes along and Mayor Demings gets in office. It's almost the exact same letter sent to him. And so then he actually had meetings with Ralph Baladelci, whatever the heck his name was, who was running the Central Florida Hoteliers at the time. and with George, I gotta say his last name, either Adair or something, who was the CEO of Visit Orlando, pushing for the 30% again. And so he was willing to do it. And so Randy Singh, who was also in the county, he was the one who had charged to do the negotiations with Visit Orlando on behalf of the mayor. And there's were meetings just with all these groups on those negotiations, and asking the mayor to agree to the 30%. So they came up with an agreement that they all agreed upon, and then it came before the TDC, Tourism Development Council or Committee. I forget what the C stands for. But very interesting because who sits on that is Mayor Devings, Mayor Dyer. Yeah. Two people who are in the tourism industry, and maybe one or two others. I forget how many. It's a small group though.
So it represents the tourism industry.
So it represents the tourism
So the
industry.
answer is.
Yeah. And so it was about 10 days before the 2007 amended contract was going to expire that it came before that board, the agreement. They have been working on this agreement. The earliest emails I've seen has been like March of 2019. So now we're in September of 2019. It's 10 days before it expires. And they're coming before this TDC to ask them to recommend it for approval to the Board of County Commissioners. So I expected that group would have a strike-through copy or a copy of the agreement. Well, when I got their meeting documents, there was nothing in there. It was just a PowerPoint presentation that was made to them. And it's like, this is, and the way Randy Singh made the presentation too, is like, this is what we're doing. And so there were really no questions from the TDC. They just went ahead and moved to approve it. Then the next step, they went onto the consent agenda of the Board of County Commissioners, saying that, this TDC recommends approval of this agreement that was negotiated. Here it is, and consent agenda. So they're really busy and missed things. Also, not to mention, it was like within days of that contract expiring. So it was like, we need to hurry up and do this. It was rushed and
And it was on purpose, probably.
So the board went ahead and, with the consent agenda went ahead and approved that. I don't remember having any briefings or discussions on it at all. From what I'm seeing, there wasn't any. So that's how that happened. And so now, we're like, this was a huge mistake. They're getting all this money. They're expected almost $120 million in the next year. The past year, they had $50 million that went unspent.
They can't spend that.
Exactly. They can't spend that much money that they didn't expect to come in fast enough. So now they're trying to find, now we're going to market in this country, in this country, in this country. We're going to add more countries that we're going to market to. And then, also looking at some of the documents too, what they were predicting was like, right now they should have been at maybe $85 million, not over $120 million.
So what percentage of tourists actually you think that we're capturing with that money? I mean, does Disney have a tourist arm that they advertise?
Well, Disney spends, I think, was it like $7 billion a year out of their budget? I forget what it
In
is.
2022, they spent
Universal.
$8 billion.
yeah.
$8
Yeah,
billion.
but that's a global.
That's a global.
advertising.
That's their whole, thing. But I did meet with Visit Orlando, and I asked many questions and went to the website. I was very disappointed to see that they were not only marketing Orange County, but they were marketing counties around us. And
Why
I
is
went.
that?
So I'll get to that. So I Googled things to do in Orlando. Visit Orlando came up first with their page, and I was like telling them, okay, I Googled things to do in Orlando. I'm getting things like an hour, 90-minute drive away from Orlando. And, we looked at their financials, they're members. So they said they were on there because they were paid members, even though they're in other counties. Their memberships add up to about $3 million. We're giving over $100 million. So I'm like, no, we're basically funding you. They're paying you basically nothing. You should be marketing only us, not other counties around us, especially when that page, it was like in the top 3, there was like maybe one thing in Orlando, then you had to scroll down maybe 15 things to do before you got to another Orlando, Orange County item, so things to do. That was horrible. And then I went to, they had this other link with resources and the Orange County budget, and I clicked on it, and it went to Orange County, California's budget.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so I said, you know, I'm being a little funny, yeah, the BCS, I'm being a little funny, but they're not only marketing other counties around us, but they're also marketing California.
Other states.
So, can you ask them, what is the pay rate for their top people? What,
To me, that was not a conversation to have, because if you really do comparables to other organizations around the country, they're getting paid about the same. It's a very well-paid position.
Compared to.
So they're like the pay, the salary isn't like an area to really be concerned about. But you know, when they put out their goals that they're gonna, you know, so they started this strategy that they're gonna do to basically try to figure out how to spend all that money. And their goal was to have 80 million visitors. Well, our best year, we had 75 million visitors, and that was in 2018, and they spent $57 million to do that. Their other goal is to get 40 million hotel nights, but in our inventory, we only have 46 million hotel nights. So that's a really high occupancy rate, a very low vacancy rate. And when you compare us to other, and this is one thing they always say, the convention center did this too. We need to compete, we need to compete, we need to compete, but they never tell us how we are actually doing and comparable to those other people we're competing against. So I had to do the research myself. I went to Las Vegas, their website, not really their person, but I went to the Las Vegas website, and I was looking at how they were doing. They have, their website's amazing for their Visit Las Vegas, where it's all the information's there. Like all the questions I was asking Visit Orlando that I couldn't get the answers to, Las Vegas had those answers right there for them. So that was very impressive. I found that, so the convention center, we get 40 out of the 200 largest conventions in Orange County. They get 60. They have way more convention space than we do. So we're doing pretty darn good. If we're 40, they're 60. Their occupancy rate is 79% of their hotels. Well, we can't expect to get more than that either, because if you do go by the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of our hotel rooms either are too crappy that no one wants to stay in, or they're too expensive that people can't afford. So we're always going to have a percentage that no one wants to book.
But it's also, if you look at the revenue per available room, like in Orlando, it's much higher than the revenue per available room in Las Vegas. Their room rates are lower.
Oh, they are.
So they generate less tax money coming back. So even though our occupancy rate may be higher than theirs, our RevPAR is higher. So
Everything's higher.
yeah. So we are getting much.
I mean, the basic question I'd say is,
But we have more hotel rooms than all the others. We have, we get more economic impact than all the others. We're at, I think it was 75% occupancy. Last week is 80. But that's still their number one in the conventions. We're number two. And I still don't understand how we're number two, really, because when I look at all the numbers, I'm like, looks like we're number one.
They're getting huge because they have 5-6 million square feet. They get the national broadcast, which I think NASA goes there. I've never been there, but we go there. Everyone goes there. They have one convention center like ours just for churches, times 6. Then they have outside. So we
but
can't.
But then they have transportation too. They have
Yes.
a train that connects with their convention center and all that. They have a lot that we don't have, but we're still doing really good.
It's amazing how we're doing as good as we're doing because we don't buy much. It's not a cheap place to visit.
Yeah. So that was my argument, was that we're not doing bad. We actually are the number one tourist destination in the world.
Right.
And so what are we competing against? So why do we need all this money to compete more when we are already doing good, and we can't even do more because we don't even have the inventory.
How do they prove that the dollar spent, how do they actually say that that dollar actually for that person? How do you get that data? Here's,
Just make an assumption.
I mean,
Yeah.
because we have Disney, Universal, all these companies are advertising around the world. We're advertising, we have our advertising, they're advertising on PBS local. Why are they doing that? It's nice that they support MFE and UCF, but I'm not gonna go visit there. They don't need to tell me about it. Why are they doing that? So are they just spending their money because they have money? I mean, and compare this.
They're starting to. One other thing, they're marketing on Brightline going to Miami. I'm like, we don't need to market to Miami. They already know we're here.
Yeah,
You know?
the marketing to the local markets. Now, if they want to do something, they can take $30 million and pay links to actually provide busing from the airport to there on 15-minute quarterly and have them actually sponsor it. They can sponsor that.
I mean, they could want
Because
to
they'd be
throw money
saying-
away.
Well,
Okay,
well-
and support transportation. They could be buying ads on our links buses, which would help pay for some of that transportation. That's where those advertising money
For
goes.
Lynx buses, I've heard that Disney has more buses than Lynx.
That's not hard to do.
Right, I'm saying,
But
we don't have a significant
$100 million is
transportation.
bigger than Links budget.
Another thing I would say is one of the issues that we're seeing with housing is maybe because they're doing such a great job getting visitors to come, the visitors come and they want to stay. And so they're taking up a lot of the housing inventory and skewing the market because the people moving with remote jobs from California, New York with high salaries are taking up a lot of the high-end inventory, pushing those people into moderate, pushing those people down into the low, and pushing the low out onto the streets and downtown. So they could use some of that money to create housing for people that they're bringing to.
But that's a really good point you bring up because some of the inventory of housing that we have, we suspect people aren't living there year round. So there are some talks about like some taxes that you can do. You know, if someone doesn't live here all year, then there's a fee or a tax that they pay.
They should be
Like some people, some areas, jurisdictions are doing that. But
What about the VRBO and all these? Do we actually hit them with bed tax?
they do that. But Orange County doesn't allow Airbnb, so they shouldn't be doing it in Orange County anyway. But the city of Orlando does it.
Yeah. But I had written a letter to the commissioners. The state says 40% has to be for promotion and advertising. There's two criteria. My point in that letter was we have everything we do, convention center, Dr. Phil, the different venues have their own advertising arms, I'm sure. Assume that they have advertising arms. Or does Visit Orlando operate as a consolidation of the football field, Dr. Phillips and music arena and all this? Or do they have their own? Because the point is, they partner.
They partner up with their members and other organizations. So Visit Orlando has said they partner up with Visit Kissimmee. And they also partner up with Visit Florida, which they're saying now that Visit Florida is
so my point is legally, we have a certain percentage that's in Florida statute 125, 0104 says we have to be, it's an end, of 40%. The point would be is if we're already pushing money to Arena, Dr. Phillips, Camping World, Convention Center, and they're doing their own advertising, that should be counted as part of the percentage of that 40%. So 30%, we might actually we actually are probably potentially spending more money. And that's why I asked in that letter that the comptroller should do an audit of all these different organizations to figure out what percentage of their budget, as a total dollar on it. If you had $100, how many dollars are actually being spent between all these organizations towards advertising? Is it $10, $100, $60? We don't know. I don't know if and we're doing all these decisions based on no data. It's like, oh, you're the person that's going to benefit. You're presenting it to me, saying it's a great job. Well, geez, I wouldn't expect
What's
nothing.
40%?
I mean, when we had Teresa Jacobs and Lynn Chapin speak to us about mayors, and then on the 29th, we have Devon's. Guess what? These people are not gonna say, break the government up, and put us as, oh, that's, you know,
180?
144. 40%. Yeah.
40%.
144 million. We have to spend probably two fractions of that much.
That's when we need
So,
the comptroller.
As we added 30% for Visit Orlando, plus we give a lot of money to arts and culture, which a lot of those organizations are using that money for promotions and marketing. So if you add all that up, it probably
Yeah, the
does
Fringe, for
add up to
example,
about-
Fringe does a hell of a lot of advertising. I mean, everyone does it, and that's part of, I mean, Blue Bamboo, which I work with, they have a small budget from you guys, from the TDP, and they have to use some of their money to do Facebook and other things. So every organization's spending money to try to become their venue. So the point is we are spending, we have all these buckets that we really don't know anything about, but Visit Orlando says, oh, we need 30%, and that only gives us 10% of that, whatever
But
that
anyways,
number is.
we're looking at lowering that. So at the end of the
But
day,
need
we were,
data.
you know, I proposed 75 million or 25%, whichever is less. That way, if there's a year where, let's say we have another pandemic or recession, God forbid, another pandemic, recession, I'm sure that's gonna happen. Like that, the funding's gonna go down. We don't wanna be stuck.
Yeah.
Oh, we have 75 million, so we'll go down to whatever 25%, whatever it is we're getting. So I think I got consensus from the rest of the board on that. Because Commissioner Reed brought up between 70, 80 million. Yeah, so yeah, I based that on calculations from 2018 when we did our best, and how much our inventory was that we were trying to fill, and adding inflation to that, it brings us to today about like 75 million that they should be good with.
So I still think that the board, the DCC should ask the comptroller to do an analysis and audit of all the money and try to figure out, that's why we employ these people to go do
But I can tell you right now that we're not gonna make the 40%, because we have bonding, we have facilities that we pay for, the money goes to a lot of those, operations of arts and cultural organizations. So with all of that, that's not marketing, it's not promotion, so I don't think we've reached the 40%. I could just do this kind of math up the top of
Well,
my
I just
head.
would like to see real numbers come out, because everyone has these feelings, and I don't have real numbers. People are getting real checks, they must know where the money's going.
But I can tell you, with the 30% we did, we probably did reach the 40%. But if we change it to 25% or 75 million, we're not gonna repeat that 40.
And at the same time, you guys should go to the legislature and change that stupid thing for us, because I think we can.
So, what the task force asked us to do, we're going to work on doing that. So that's something the board, the previous meeting had, you know, said.
I mean, the mayor obviously wants certain things, and that's fine, he's one vote.
His proposal was to only, lower it by 10 million by taking the sports incentive 10 million that we use and putting that into the 30% that we, that would just been call it haircut, a 10 million, and it would be a 10 million trim. But we were like, no, we're gonna give you a 50 million haircut.
I mean, they don't need that money, I mean, they would have to prove that they're actually worth that. If the dollar spent is generating $8, then that's worth it. Can they actually show that their dollar generates more trips here? I don't know.
Well, it's really hard. They say they can through their analytics, but I mean, that's still.
Then the county should have an independent organization that's not local, outside the state, to go do an audit and analysis and come and give a report, because otherwise you're trusting the fox to watch the hen house. That's exactly what you guys are doing right now, and it's like, we're getting hosed, and everyone has feelings, but let's go get some data. Let's go hire a university from Iowa and say, go do this. They have economists there.
So
They can do it.
They did hire Oxford to do
Who's they?
the visitor Orlando.
See that? You can't do that. You can't have.
Well, the only thing that they did was to get, I think Oxford only did the calculation on how much each dollar that they spend brings back an economic.
So, as an environmentalist, what happens is environmental consultants get jobs, be it the developer. If they bring the wrong answer too many times, they don't get contracts. That's the reality of life in this world. So they don't bring the wrong answers too much. They might push the edges a little bit. They're not going to push the wrong answer. So the only way you can do it when Key West wanted to figure out, hey, does cruise ships really make us money? They put out open bid, restricted to out-of-state venues. University of Georgia got the bid. They worked the numbers and found the $7 they were charging per head was actually so low that they were, because it pushed so many of the normal people like myself who stay overnight out because you couldn't stand having 10,000 people coming in to buy a T-shirt and maybe get a drink at Sloppy Joe's and use the bathroom, which is really expensive in the Keys because that's all imported water from 125 miles away, and then the sewage deal with it. They actually lost money when they seen one of those, but just looking at the person, not including the people like us who go visit, drive down there, spend 3 or 4 days at $200 to $400 a night, plus you buying 3 square meals. Those people get free food on that ship. You think they're buying meals in QS? No, they're not going to go to Caroline Street and eat at a really nice restaurant there. So they came back, and that's why they got preempted. They got preempted by the state, but that's why Key West worked it up, and the voters voted to stop and cap the cruise ships because they had an independent group that said, this is the reality, this is what we found out, and and the local community said, okay, we cap it at so much. Of course, the state was nice enough to say, no, you guys don't know what you're doing. But still,
in their community, they should have been allowed to do what they.
Home rule doesn't count in this state anymore. I mean, so the point is.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna push all these large ships into your community, whether you like.
I mean, the point is we need an independent organization outside Florida that actually does announcing. We can't ask a consultant that we hire to visit Orlando, which essentially is a consultant, that say, go prove or disprove that you're worth something. Well, guess what? The consultants are not going to bring back bad news to them. They're going to push the edges, but they're not going to bring back. So the only way to get the truth in my book is go to an RFP and go to the open house outside your realm. These people cannot have business in this area ever because I don't trust that you're ever going to get a truthful answer. Because if you ever want business, you're not going to bring bad news to the person that pays you the dollar.
No,
I'm just cynical. I'm super cynical.
During the rent stabilization, it was such an obvious example of how a consultant could be biased. That was just the worst I've ever seen. And definitely hurt my trust with any consultant.
You have to go outside. The RFP cannot be, it has to be restricted outside your normal.
And there wasn't even an RFP for that one. The staff picks who they want.
Well, and that's as a Board of County Commissioner, when you go to talk to TDT, you should do an analysis based on a couple of things. And you should order, you do an RFP that the BCC has the right to order audits. You guys are the ones that control the dollars, not the mayor, the BCC. That's a government committee issue that we're fighting right now. Who controls who or what?
So are there any other questions on the CAT? Sorry.
When is the meeting going to come up regarding the impact fee or the new scorecard? The suggestions that the TDT task force made. When does that come up to the BCC?
21st.
Like what else? The other recommendation?
No, so the TDT made these recommendations for the scorecard to be changed and to lobby the state for the impact fee, but are those going to be public meetings that people can come and make a comment in support of?
No, I think we already gave direction to the mayor and staff to do the lobby to the state. As far as changing the metric, I don't think the board can move that forward. Yeah, that was just a recommendation. I just don't. I don't know if I'm going to use that. I don't think the board trusts that matrix.
Yeah.
I think we just didn't pay attention to that recommendation because, I don't think we are going to use it again anyway. And if we did get recommendations based on the matrix, we're not going to use the matrix. Because we know it's flawed. So.
The TDT is going to fund, hopefully not fund the football field and all these expansions. The basic question I keep on asking
Well, the mayor's really pushing for it.
He's one vote.
Mike
So what?
Scott, at the last meeting was expressing how it benefits his community.
How? Do they get $20 parking at the people's homes? That's all.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, the point
No,
is,
that
was the example.
yeah.
that's stupid. It's actually bringing down the community. 20 years ago, I fought in this room here, the main chambers, about the stupid UCF hospital, not going there, but blowing up the stupid T-ball at the time and putting the hospital there. That would have provided real jobs. The football stadium probably has less than 10 full-time
The
jobs.
football stadium only pays like $9.25 an hour. I mean, it's not a
And
livable wage.
that's
We shouldn't be funding anything that doesn't pay a livable wage.
and it's only during the events. You have to set up for the events. When at NASA, one of our things was outreach. So I would go to stadiums around the country, setting up robotics organization, and I talk to people as you would expect.
Well, if
They're
you
all gig workers.
you know what, from all the discussions I have and like these people who are running these organizations, these tourism organizations, the sports facilities and stuff, they don't care about the wages that people are getting paid. They only care about bringing business to those business owners
Who make lots of
are
money.
who are, running these businesses. They don't.
I mean,
It doesn't matter how much these businesses are actually paying here.
my dad worked for Eastern Airlines.
But from the
And he
public
worked-
sector, it should not, that should be like the first question that the board would ask was,
Oh,
what are they giving back? What's the work conditions? If you're gonna fund a facility, what are the work conditions going to be like for our people inside of those facilities? And if it's a crappy, unlivable wage, poor work conditions, we shouldn't be funding it. I think that we're funding.
example for our people, the Soul United neighborhood.
No, and that's why I said, I mean, my opening statement is basically because yesterday or
2 days ago.
no, yesterday, God,
Yeah,
it feels like it was last week already.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yes.
Anyway, so my opening statement was, what's our goal as a county? Is it to diversify our economy, or is it to continue growing a volatile tourism industry that pays low income jobs, wages? Question. That was my opening, because, and I said, we could be using this money creatively to, and I brought the film incentive, I'm pushing for the film incentive, because the film incentive affects all industries, all kinds of industries, not just the hospitality industry, and it has high paying jobs. So, it's like being creative with that kind of stuff. I mean, I wish it could come up with more ideas like that, but I don't know what other
So example,
industry we could use the TDT for that does that.
what we do in the Soul United, which is,
I'm sorry, but the TDT could be used for a lot of non-traditional projects like what you're talking about. One of them could be, for example, emergency housing or transitional housing for people that are experiencing homelessness. They usually have like this window of time, it's about 6 to 8 days, where they need a place to stay before the other organizations can intervene and get them into transitional housing. So that TDT can be used for that, because getting people off of the streets is something that impacts the ecosystem of tourism, so it could be used for creative things like that. It could be used for,
But can we really get away with that?
we
what's
do
that?
it all over the state of Florida. Then the other example is,
So they have special permission,
What section?
right, but I
which
mean,
is what we were asked to ask for.
right. So, and I know you guys are gonna go off and do that, but I mean, I just don't think that, even if that changes, I don't think that the board under Mayor Demings either has the innovation to think of opportunities like that for the community, or will not be motivated enough to do it for whatever reason.
But I'll tell you first what I feel at this moment. I feel it's like futile. I think that's because the DeSantis is there, and I feel like just wait till after 2026
If nothing changes.
to really then retage, because right now we're just not gonna accomplish anything.
gotta try it at least. I mean,
No, like, I'm telling you, we are not. All of the funding that Orange County has asked for has been vetoed. And even though it passed the Senate and the House, like, by the time it went to the governor's desk, it was vetoed. All of it.
As a charter county commissioner, I know damn well I'm gonna be shortchanged and all anything that work. I already saw Deseret walk out, and they're gonna do something to grow about it. Something's gonna happen.
I think that this
You know,
can
but
be,
it doesn't stop me, no, you'll
But-
still move on it.
it has something to do with the positioning of the ask, because if Orange County implements a tourism impact fee, we're taxing the tourists more, it's more revenues coming in. If we can use that revenue for the social services that we need, that reduces the state funding that has to come to Orange County. So it all depends, I think, on how, like, if it can be packaged in a way of saving the state money.
You're already taking away our money already.
I know, but they would be making more, you know, if there's a financial gain, I think that's hard for any legislature to walk away from.
They get a lot of sales taxes from us.
But they would get more with the impact fee. The tourism impact fee.
If we did new fees.
No,
Or they
so-
mean the TDT.
So the TDT, the tourist development tax, that stays in one portion of it. Then you just implement an additional tourism impact fee, and that's the one that has more flexibility for community needs.
The thing is, we can't do any taxes unless it was already approved by the state.
Right, so we get the approval, but maybe if it's packaged in a way of making the state more money or saving the state money.
We exercise every cent that we use, that, because I mean, it's a long, 125 is really long. There's exceptions, of course, 950,000 people below that, sort of things, but there's exceptions on money, on how, I don't know if we're exercising things. Although
But
that course,
I know right now we're just, anything that we need, we're just going to back. We're Association County, the other counties ask for it. Because I'm telling you, anything we ask for is being,
so you have to,
like, we're being like targeted in Florida,
oh,
like,
sure.
specifically.
We're Blue County, that's why.
So,
They talking in any blue counties and swiping at us. But these are issues that other counties have too. So we go to the other counties, which he likes, and say, can you put this in? We don't have to go.
exactly, so that's what our strategy is, just,
Yeah.
you know, let the other counties ask for it.
If 50 county, put a gentleman up there, it still applies to us because we make an exception that counties
Yeah,
over
definitely, it has to
1.5
be
million
an
cannot
issue
get it,
that
you know?
the other counties also care about, you know, and it's also effective.
I mean, housing is huge throughout the whole state. This state is gonna be to the point where.
It is, but they still preempted the rent renovation,
What's
even
gonna
though it affects the whole state.
Well, at some point, the old parts here that need CNAs and all that, they won't be here because they can't live here. I mean, when my parents were still alive, the CNAs for the last year or so were all contractors. The services were going down there physically, and that was one of the best facilities in Orlando. So the problem is, we're not gonna have the workers. They're gonna leave the state. Young people are leaving. They're not, they see the future. I work with different university students. They are being encouraged by the professors to leave the state. It's the environment. So he can sit there and play his games, but in about 5 years, we're gonna have a serious problem because there's too many old farts like me who aren't working, and there's not enough young people working to take care of old farts like me. It's catch-22.
But I think their argument is there's so many people moving here every day
The
that
problem,
will make up for those that leave.
I don't agree with that because,
I'm not saying
I know the number.
there are.
My argument is you cannot support the state of Florida off the villages because that's an economic boondoggle that's doomed to fail. And they're doing a special fire service tax right now. They're gonna try to weasel back on it. Their commission was kicked off 2 years ago because they raised their impact fees from $600 per home to $900. They all got kicked off, raising it $300. That's the type of people that we're encouraged to move to Florida. That it's insane that I talked to Kelly about this. I would love to have grad students look at the type of people we're encouraging to move here are actually economic
creating more issues.
If their economic boondoggle stupidity, because these people come here, buy a cheap home, they go to Publix, and they don't need many calories because they're old. It's just,
Okay, wait, I have something else to.
I'm old, I can speak that way.
Maybe so you know much calories.
Listen,
No,
Maybe having more. They
No.
need more.
Per pound, they eat more.
Okay, wait.
Per pound,
Okay,
per
well,
pound.
so I have
They eat a lot of calories.
an important topic, not regarding the TDT, but it happened at the TDT meeting. What was, that was, it was shameful how people were silenced yesterday.
Oh, man, yeah.
So people were reduced to speak to 1 minute and then only 30 minutes total in public comment. That's what Jerry Demings allowed. So what happened, so the TDT was up. So I signed up in advance 2 days online because I knew that I was going to be coming. Visit Florida, I think that they got
Notice.
somebody noticed them and said, hey, they'll only be 30 minutes, get people to sign up because it was visit Florida,
Collusion.
Visit Orlando, yeah.
Yeah, visit Orlando, all the way down, with the exception of myself and the guy from Christian Services. That was it, who spoke against
It
it.
wasn't a balance.
And then there was people who were sitting in this room that weren't even here for the TDT. They were here for hurricane funding that the county's not releasing to their community or something like that. So that they had taken time off of work, they paid to park in the parking garage. They're sitting in here waiting for their name to be called. They didn't fully understand that the mayor was only allowing 30 minutes. So they're still just
That was
waiting.
new to me too. That, I'll tell you, for all the 7 years I've been here, not very long, but still, it's light up. That never happened.
Well, that's
Never.
not.
Well, couldn't the,
Well,
I
I'll tell you
wasn't sure
too.
if that was allowed at
no,
all.
I think the
too,
commission
because
could have wanted them.
How are you
down.
No,
silencing
I
the public?
checked the rules. I was like checking the rules, you know. Unfortunately, the chair of the board, the presiding officer, according to how it's mentioned, gets to decide that.
Yeah, something.
I think that was so unfortunate for those people because they were sitting in here and then they didn't understand that once public comment closed, that they weren't going to get their chance. So they just continued to wait for their name to be called because they had no idea. It was clear that they hadn't been down here before. They were unfamiliar with the process and they were under a great deal of stress because they couldn't get the money they needed to repair their homes and they needed the county's help.
It was less than half that were able to speak. We had 52 people signed up. And because of the 30 minutes that you allowed, plus one person took 3 minutes and the time that it takes for people to get up from their seat to walk over, I mean, less
Did
than
he
half.
ever speak and say, like, he does all, we in the community talk
I
about
did
funding.
ask him. I went to the mayor and I asked him. I said, "Can we at least have the remainder of people do like 30 seconds?" And he said, "No."
But, normally.
I mean, at least to say why you were there.
So there was collusion.
Or even say, those of you who are not here for the TDT, please stand, at least hear from the people that were here for something totally different.
That was not his game.
I know.
I mean, it's obviously he has a relationship somehow with these people. I'm sorry, I'm just being cynical. There's a relationship, and personally, I think the board should have made a motion to change the rules, because you should have a rule to change rules. The majority should be able to change the rule. So you should change it. Let's say the rules are not rock solid. They can be changed. In the world I work in.
I would have needed, though, I think a supermajority in order to get the rules changed. Like, so you could suspend the rules, but I would have needed like a supermajority.
No,
I wasn't sure if I would be able to get on the board.
I certainly think that a motion, and then you'd probably be second, Wilson would might have still. And admittedly, I would say you have 4. Then you have 1 or 2 people that are questionable. But to have a dictator tell you what you should. A chair is a person that the good chair allows the conversation and does not squash it even when they're only negative. I mean, our chair in the CRC actually is really good because he votes against us, but he still allows us to speak, and we usually overrule him.
So I also asked him, another thing I asked him too, I was like, because there was a guy who worked for Visit Orlando speaking, and when I told him, like, Visit Orlando's already going to do a presentation, it doesn't seem fair that they have their people coming up
Yes.
and speak too.
Exactly.
And he said, well, they're part of the public too.
But the point that he always makes to us when we're talking is like, Kelly, you said it, Eugene, if you're saying the same, sit down, he would tell us on how to, if you're gonna repeat, don't say it. Just give, and And he's done that multiple times.
He did say, you know, visit Orlando, please be mindful, you guys are presenting later, but it didn't
That's
stop
after
them
I
from
told
speaking.
them.
It didn't stop them either.
They still took their full 1 minute, when they could have just taken 15 seconds and be
Yeah.
like,
To
I'm
somebody
here to
else.
visit Orlando or submit it to somebody
Yeah.
else, yeah.
Give it to
They
me.
didn't care.
I mean, yeah.
So I have a lot of concerns. So this is the practice that we start to adopt moving forward for contentious issues, like for example, save Shingle Creek. Okay, so that whole effort's going to be launched, you know, the infill of those wetlands. So if that comes down to, oh, everybody gets 1 minute and the developer had everybody sign up 3 days in advance, so the regular people who show up don't get to speak, or if it happens for us to meet, they could get ignored.
Well,
And
that,
if this
that
becomes,
happened with the Grove. Remember the kids that were coming, they were being paid. Those kids that came to talk to the
Yeah.
Grove, they were being paid to be here.
yeah,
And they're lobbyists. In fact, all these lobbyists, these people got, according to what you found out, they were being paid day off to come down here.
yeah.
They were paid lobbyists. They never identified themselves as a lobbyist.
They got the
Well,
day.
so the whole vote is part of it, in my book.
Well, then I wonder if Visit Orlando was on the clock
Oh,
when
yeah,
they had all their stuff.
I'm sure they,
Right.
yeah,
Because that's all them lobbying.
that's lobbying. I mean, they're taking time lobbying the commission and not identifying themselves as a lobby. Obviously, they are lobbyists because they're trying to get the money. But, you know,
You can check the speaker cards, it's supposed to mark whether they're getting paid to be here or not.
if then, you know,
It wouldn't matter anyway, there's not even any consequence anyway, if they lied on the card.
You're right. There is no.
There's no consequence.
no, you know, but, I don't know. I mean, it says, I think the rules need to be addressed and maybe it's going to be contentious.
So if he does that again, what can the people do in that moment to stop the silence? I mean, is there something you can do at the board level?
I can make a motion to suspend the rules of procedures.
And if it's a supermajority,
You know,
it's five.
and that would suspend him from being able to do that, and then we'll make a decision on how to have.
I mean, obviously, he's not going to
As a
afford, so you know, you can afford one other person to lose. But I mean, I think
I have to check the rules of procedures of that pink binder. Right?
No, it's not.
it's
Because I have a copy of pink binder just like that. I was like, what?
I mean, you're based on Robert rules. I mean, it's a modified.
We're not based on Robert.
It's a projection of Robert rules. I would imagine.
It's not. I wish it was, but Robert rules is so much fairer, and ours is not.
You've probably taken them and moved them forward. Because every parliamentary organization can do
It's
that.
the board. The board over time just kept giving away their power. That's how we are.
Well, and that's why we're addressing. That's coming up in a little bit. Probably.
Okay,
let's
so
go
if
to
you
the
want
next
to
one.
move, yeah,
Let's go to the Wedgefield project.
yeah, Alexis, how about you do a presentation on Flores?
7:30 now.
So sorry. So we had a community meeting last Wednesday, November 8th. Did anyone here attend? I know I saw you there. I think I saw you there as well.
Players meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
I think it went really, really well. There was like 180 people that attended the Wedgefield School cafeteria. Tim Armstrong of Orange County Utilities gave a really thorough presentation, I would say, on what the next phase is in the history of what has happened so far in Flores. There was a lot of questions from the constituents that were there on the next phase, and you know, I feel like they gave their feedback on whether or not they would like it. I feel like it was pretty divided. I don't know, you all that were there, how you guys felt. It was good questions, but there's still a group of people that believe that the county should pay for everything. Tim Armstrong did rebuttal that, kind of saying, you know, everyone pays for utility services. We're essentially charging you for your services. It's just how everyone in the county pays for it. And we, as you know, as part of Commissioner Bonilla's office, we want to form a Wedgefield Action Alliance. So what it is, it's a group of people that will go door to door canvassing the people that are on the Flores Wedgefield wastewater system, and just keep them engaged in the conversation. We definitely want them to come out to the next BTC and speak about how they feel about everything. Commissioner, any more comments?
Yeah, so the goal is to make sure that every single person on the Litchfield utility has the information and knowledge of what's going on, all of their questions answered. That way there's no excuse for them to say, I didn't know. I had one woman come to me, she's like, I've been here 20 years and I didn't know this was going on. Like, yeah, like.
So do they?
I'm like, I don't know how, you know, it was like.
And then the Orange County Utilities sent out mailers to all of the property owners and anyone who might be renting. But that's still like 1,800 people, and we only had 180 people attend the meeting
That's not too bad.
to watch the presentation.
Yeah,
So we do all that we can, but canvassing would certainly, you know, get the conversation going a little bit more for those who couldn't attend the meeting.
Yeah, so my goal is like to guarantee, like we know either in person or on the phone, talk to them and can confirm that they got the information. So they can't say I've been here 20 years and didn't know what's going on. Because like the meetings, I think, you know, if I'm just going to guess, maybe out of all the community meetings we've had maybe 20% of that 1,800 people show up. I want to guess. You know? We had like 4.
Okay.
I don't know how many meetings. 3.
I think that was the third.
3, maybe
There was 2 meetings before that I wasn't a part of,
Yeah.
and then this would be the third.
Do you guys keep the names and maybe, you know, mark the homes are at and see how many rent homes and how many, what's your hit rate at this?
So they definitely have a sign-in sheet, and I'm gonna message or I'm gonna email Tim Armstrong and his team to see if we can get the mailing list that they sent out all the mailers to. And that way we know which houses to go to and maybe cross the sign-in sheet from the community meeting to see who already has the knowledge.
So, I mean, some of the people that spoke, you know, last time I heard, they bought homes, they didn't know they were getting bad water and stuff. Is there truth in that sale where they're told that they don't have good water when they look at these homes? Or is this fire about?
Well, no one's saying you have bad water, really, because according to the Florida, what is it, FPSC, they pass water quality checks. So it's not that they have bad water. On paper, they don't have bad water. What they have is expensive water.
But we say on paper.
On paper, because everyone complains you have hard water. It's not.
Yeah.
They're using filters.
Well,
So on paper, it's passing the water quality check. So I don't think they're required to say, "Hey, you have bad water."
so that, I mean, do they have a system that's failed and they can't drink the water anymore, or is it tannic and
It's like smells weird and that it's discolored.
Yeah.
But
But
it passed.
if it passes, I mean, come to the wells that we call on the trail, and it's nasty water out there. It's nasty. But you have to do hydrogen peroxide treatment. There's a lot of treatments you can do. That leak up in Seminole County. That hydrogen peroxide is for stanky water. It's to take out the stank out of it. But it's another subject. It's stanky. I'll take you out of Creek Church. Stanky water. It's bad.
So
Did you-
Raquel, actually, I know you live in Wedgefield. Are you a part of any Facebook groups, or could you help us get the word around about our Wedgefield action lines to see if anyone's willing to join?
Yes.
I can send you an email with a little message.
So I would say that there's about 3 pages now, and one in particular that I think that just started not too long ago, because they're trying to shut down the HOA.
I mean, this.
Like this mantle.
Oh, really? Tell me how they do it. 'Cause we're trying to
It's
do
a
it.
voluntary
Oh.
HOA.
It's
So
a
they
voluntary
don't
HOA.
collect fees
Yeah.
or anything like
I
that.
love to know how to do it. 'Cause
Yeah,
I wanna
it's
show us.
voluntary, the HOA fees and stuff, but
Yes.
so there's quite a bit of there's quite a bit of audience now paying attention to all the pages because of everything that's brewing, which might be advantageous in being able to push that information out. But I did, like, when I was coming in from 520, I did see the signs of that was promoted the upcoming meeting. But on the 528 side, which is typically how I'm coming, I didn't see any.
So is the concern expensive water? Is that the concern, or is it lousy water and bad sewage?
All 3.
It's all, but
You've got customer service too.
Orange County Utilities right now, they can't officially say, I feel like it's a legal issue too, if they come out and say, hey, you guys have poor quality, like poor water quality, because then Clarison's gonna want to work with them.
But, you know, it doesn't stop a citizen out there to take the water and have it tested. And you just pull the water out, you have, call a company out, they'll come and test your water. It doesn't stop.
And I wanna say that I wanna say they have.
Yeah.
But again, the validity of it, you know, it's,
We have to find a company that will take legal,
I mean,
Yeah,
isn't that what the
statement.
lawsuit was for?
that's
They
what the
tested,
lawsuit was,
exactly,
yeah.
they tested some houses and they didn't have good water. But then they've said that they're fixing it. That's what the settlement was for, right?
it's an old system, it's 60 years and it's highly acidic soils and who knows what the piping was like when they put it in. Those are unknowns. As an engineer, I just sit back and cringe thinking that.
Yeah, so those are all the questions that an assessment will answer. But we have an appraisal happening now. For full assessment's gonna be over $1 million and be over a year. And so we're just not there yet.
That's where they actually go and send pigs down and look at pipes and stuff.
So yeah, Orange County Utilities is doing their own sort of assessment that's not gonna cost over $1 million. And that way they can get a better appraisal. You know, they can negotiate better with their own sort of assessment of it.
When did those results come back?
If they started last week, it's expected to last 3 months. So I think they're coming back to the board around January.
I think this is sometime in January.
Yeah.
Do we have spare capacity on the east side for sewage?
No.
So we have to expand the Alapaya plant or Iron Bridge?
They're not planning on doing that. They're planning on just using the one that's existing.
Just what's the capacity that, how many homes can that, what's the design? What's the capacity? Just a 2,000?
1,800 homes.
And really the development, at least in the subdivision side, is almost at capacity, I would say. But so to commit the $1 million for the assessment, does it come down to getting consensus on the voters saying that they're willing, they're gonna absorb the cost? As a community, there's a consensus that they're gonna absorb the cost, right?
Yeah, the Board of County Commissioners, after they heard how bad the straw poll went, I mean, I say how bad, it wasn't that bad, but still, it was bad enough for them to be like, we're not gonna do this if we don't have the people behind it, you know? So we really need the community to be engaged and want to do it, for the county to be willing to move forward. You know? They don't want the county, like, and I know elected official wants to tax people who don't want to be taxed. It just looks for the fact.
So-
Policy.
Shooting yourself.
For a simple example,
Who does want to be taxed?
Exactly,
I
who
don't
wants
mind
to be
taxes.
taxed,
Actually,
you
I
know,
don't mind.
so, yeah.
I'm being taxed. like
Hey,
crazy.
if I'm getting services for it, you know, I don't mind paying for it, you know?
I pay for a lot
And
of
I
services I never reflect.
With the current projections, it's that, you know, come December, their rates are gonna go up again. So if their buyout is $30 million plus the Orange County fees, which is like $60 a month. So with the MSBU and the monthly rates, it's actually gonna be more affordable than what it's currently
What
at.
they're currently
Because it's, the rates are just gonna increase and increase and
But who
increase.
absorbs the
And I think
cost?
that
Like, I think it's a 70% increase.
Well,
Come
the
next
issue
month.
is that, you know, talking to the voters is like, you're not speaking numbers. What is it boiled down to a potential number? Don't hold me to it, but this is
That's
what,
why they need the.
That's an
there's
assessment.
gotta be an assessment that provides them that comparison. Another opportunity is, you know, we've got the mid-elections that are coming up. That's gonna drive a lot of people to that community, clubhouse to vote. So that might be an opportunity to promote another session, because people, I mean, they have other.
Oh, yeah, you mean the special
election that's coming up in January.
Oh, the third,
So
35?
That's for district, yeah, House District
35.
35.
That's a good time to promote another
When,
meeting.
do you have the date?
It's January, like third week of January, I think.
Maybe it's supervisor elections
Yeah,
website.
it's on the supervisor election.
So, a simple example would be, if I wanted to put speed bumps on my street, what percentage would you like to agree? Because they pay for it.
Same thing, it's the same percentage.
What's
It's,
the percentage?
I wanna say 65%.
6%. So, and then, and when you do a speed bump thing, they have to say, I guess they're not gonna enjoy it, but you won't have.
No, they do a mailer.
And the election is January
Is
16th.
that 65% based on the
Special.
return votes?
So then will they do the same tally where if somebody doesn't return a vote, it's considered no? Is that still the same method?
Same with
That will
speed
be
pumps.
used.
That's the way
It's
it
the
works.
same method from speed pumps to buying a
Okay,
utility company.
That's fair. If you,
Same process.
No, but I mean, so if somebody doesn't return a vote,
no.
they're still gonna count it as a no.
Doesn't make sense.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
It's
But that's a fair assessment, because if you're not taking interest that you're gonna get a speed bump, those things aren't cheap. For a street to do 3 speed bumps, it's thousands of dollars. So tens of thousands.
It's gonna be really difficult to get to 65%.
So I mean, if those people really want it, then they have to vote. And
Another
that has to be
So another
communicated.
thing is that the board can vote to go ahead and do it anyway. But like I said, it's just not popular for an elected official to sack someone who doesn't want to talk.
Because it might hit all of us without doing a really deep depth engineering assessment.
It's not gonna hit all of us, because the expenses are gonna be borne on the budget community. Whatever the price is, they're paying for it on their MSTU.
What happens if you have a cost from, okay, my assessment said it's gonna be 85 million, all of a sudden you start really getting bigger pipes up, and all of a sudden they start crumbling before you, and you did a sampling, your sampling wasn't good enough, so your assessments are 50% off, now it's at $150 million, what happens? Who makes up the difference?
So the board has been asking for, the other members of the board are asking for a full assessment, the $1 million assessment, before they make the final decision, but that's granted if they have the constituent support.
So do we have, okay, some cost when designed into it, because there's gonna be something that happens, or budget goes without. Especially right now, I mean, most
I
of
think
them,
in some of their calculations, they did add a little buffer to it.
tell you, in the Parks and Rec, when we get our bids come in, everything's way over budget, so they're all being bounced back and they're being reassessed on a smaller scope.
Oh my
So
gosh, the
everything-
dog park. They're so overpriced. You type a company to do a dog park. I'm like, it's just a fence. I'll just go do it myself. You know, and so when I told Matt that, our Parks and Rec guy, he just did internal, like they did it internally and had someone like
Really?
yeah, because it was like I was like, that's ridiculous.
But I think that's something that's going to have to do more and more of. It's internal, and Winter Park does it all the time. Winter Park is very much on top of doing their own work internally, because contracting sense. But then Peace Parks, man, I just put a 50 amp service in my house. I did it myself. A stick of plastic was $17. One stick of PVC electrical. That's insane.
Yes.
Okay.
I did my
Okay, next
irrigation
one.
last week.
Okay,
Oh my
and then
God.
went through the updates real fast.
Okay.
Initiative petition, we're getting closer to the final chart changes. The D5 roof has really slashed and burned on that. So we've done away with a lot of, we saved a lot of trees on that. We're going to be starting to work on the ballot language and the title. The red lines, we have knocked out 80% of the code, which is what, and we have, the chair really is pushing us to do that too. Expanded government structure, we did have one vote that came through. We agreed that we would continue 4-year cycles of the CRC, so that it's off our plate now. We're still looking at the mayor. We've had Mayor Chapin and Mayor Jacobs come and speak to us. Chapin was very glowing on how great the mayor was done. And then she also reflected, we asked the question about the the attorney, which is another huge question. And we asked what happened back in '88. And the way I interpret what she said was basically she didn't think the voters were smart enough to understand that they were going to do all these changes to the mayor, so they didn't put it in. That was my
That's
interpretation.
exactly what she said.
That's okay.
That's exactly what she said.
Okay,
That's your interpretation. She said the voters weren't smart enough.
Because I kept
You
on,
can't not put stuff in because you don't think people
and
understand
that's
it.
why even Tom,
Wow,
who's
that's
on
so
the,
wrong.
She actually said, you don't want to meddle with that. If you put that in, voters won't know what you're talking about.
they don't understand. I've asked a number of people, if you
So
said,
insulting.
and she was like, I was not happy.
Who
So,
said that?
Mayor
Chapin.
Chapin.
Former mayor Linda Chapin.
Chapin, the original. She
The
said-
first mayor, the one who changed,
Yeah.
who
Yeah,
did
that
a
was like
lot of
three
this.
meetings.
I mean, they
who
changed.
created this mess.
And basically, they did away, it's a really big concern. We're gonna do something. I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but I know Tom has already said that a voter could bring this forward and actually delete everything that we did back in '88 because it was not fairly represented. We violated, Florida Statute 102.
Hey, I sit the county once, I'll do it again. I'll
Well,
do it.
I mean, I'm not, is it either 101 or 102 says when you write the ballot language, you have to fully explain what you're gonna do in the charter language. And I can tell you from Weebwork, I took a lot of time to try to get every paragraph reflected in that 75 words. It can be done if you spend the time. So
Or
that,
you split it up.
you can split it up, and that's something we're considering on how to do this. So I think we have not really, we talked about, we've not moved any action. I hope we actually start doing. The mayor, we really need people to come out and say, we don't need a strong mayor that sits on the BCC. The strong mayor concept could be a veto as a separate office, which gives you the ability to go sit and talk to them, not the sunshine issue. So they're not sitting and voting and setting an agenda. So I really think like people like you and they talk about the budgetary issues, because that would reflect strongly to some of our members. They reflect, and Kelly, tell me I'm wrong, but I think we are really open to this is costing money by doing behavior. So TDT would be something, look, the mayor has this agenda, whatever, and we didn't, as a board, we are not able to even set and have the voters speak to us. And because of the rules and stuff. So that's happening. We're still working. We have another meeting on the 29th. We're meeting like every 2 weeks now on that one. Sustainable growth and charter cleanup. We sort of redirected because Lee Constantine, 2 meetings with Charles Lee Constantine, come and speak to us again, and then Randy Morris came, so we're very interested because he was the person that actually was one of the people that wrote that back in 2004 and promoted it and got it passed at the Senate. What Lee told us was we need to study maps because, and he set us on, and we were very happy when he did that because we were struggling. How do we draw maps of the rural areas? And he said, you have to study that, and it takes a couple of years. So we went off thinking, okay, we're going to form a 2-step process. We're going to put the language together, form a committee that will meet then, and their objective is by June of 26, produce a map. Well, I had some heartburn. Kelly had some heartburn. Lori on the west side had some heartburn. So we all talked about it and we realized, hell, Vision 2050, we've been working since 2016 on the maps. It's exactly what we've been doing. We have a bunch of maps. So the last meeting, I printed a bunch of stuff based on what everyone told me to look at. And we presented that as new data and said, we should consider looking at municipalities and Horizons West. We know these things have legal designation, so we can't take those rights away. So we have to redraw based on the reality of 2023, not this nice line that was drawn 30 years ago. That's not reality now. But let's draw a new line and say anything outside here then gets, the county maintains that designation of what that rule, that the zoning is. Exactly what, we don't take the right away from them. They can come and ask the board for a super majority. And we also set up this 80%, not a supermajority, because supermajorities don't work. And I said N minus one, and our council came up with an 80% number. That 80%, I think, is going to be there. The next meeting, we're going to talk more about this. Hopefully, I'm hoping that we can get drawn.
And according to Seminole County commissioners that have the rural boundary, they say that having a rural boundary has literally saved them billions and billions of money in infrastructure.
Mr. Lee Constantine, who is a Republican, and he is a conservative guy. He knows, he's been in public service his entire life. He's been a mayor and everything else.
And one of the things that they talked about is Lee Constantine, or it was Randy Morris, said that when you build a house, it takes about 50 to 60 years for that home, whoever lives there, people can sell it, collecting on the property insurance to make a positive return on investment for the county. So meaning, it's the roads that goes in, it's the sidewalks, the schools, but then you also have to start supporting the teachers' salaries, firemen's salaries, and police. And so all the fringe benefits that come with it. And so it's about 50 to 60 years before there's finally a profit.
The house will crumble by then.
Yeah.
The way they make houses today.
I mean, from Seminole's standpoint, their footprint is stable now. They do have infrastructure upkeep costs. And what we've been doing as SWA does, we have tens of thousands of miles of pipe that we're eventually going to have to get, and we have PVC that we don't have any knowledge of how long that's going to last. So we're exposing the future generations to unknown costs. So that's it. The creation of the public bank is still happening. As a board, we're just confused on what exactly it's about. I mean, I've asked Nelson, who's the person, to please write up a proposed charter amendment for us to be, because we don't know what to write. We really don't know. I mean, Kelly,
I think it's got to have something good in it, because the lead lobbyist from Tallahassee drove down to attend the meeting and talked about how terrible public banking is. So whenever something like that happens, usually there's something good.
yeah. I mean, that's why, I mean, as a board member, I'm just,
Hey, there's lobbyists against it.
I tell you, I mean, we had
It's something that's good for people.
we had 10, 12 lobbyists there.
Yeah.
We had, that by far the most popular meeting that we've had is the public bank has just gotten a lot of bankers upset, and they've come, and I'm cynical.
It must really be.
I'm old enough to remember Resolution Trust Fund, and they're trying to say, well, the public bank would be a terrible thing because the public would have to bail them out. I think Resolution Trust Fund.
What's more
2008.
interesting about this, though, is that it was pushed forward only really to learn more about it, because no one really understood it, so it was pushed forward as a way if we don't know anything about it, let's at least explore and see what it is.
So essentially,
for them to get so nervous on something that was just exploratory,
and that's why we need.
It's very interesting.
It's interesting, but it's not.
I need to learn more.
But the problem is, it's not going to go anywhere because
it would
we don't
earn
know.
Orange County. Well, it would retain an extra $20 million
A month.
In bank fees.
Yeah, because Wells Fargo collects $20 million in fees. So there's certain, the comptroller is against it. Who else is spoken
Wait,
against
the comptroller was against it? Phil Diamond?
his people?
Why?
This would be an accounting mess.
To the accountant.
Because they wanted to
They used to serve. I mean, people don't like change. That's why I think it. And we really need someone. We had a guy from Colorado, but we need someone to actually write something. Because I told Nelson, I don't know what to write on this one. I don't know where to start on this. I'm not a banker.
So what other jurisdictions are doing a public bank?
So the state of North Dakota has one that's 100 years old. Los Angeles just passed one. San Francisco just passed one.
Okay, example, it's not California.
New York and Colorado.
So what we need is.
Right, Colorado, maybe.
we
They
need-
just passed one?
Yeah.
So we need language from them and see what that language says. And that's what, Nelson and whoever wants to advocate, they need to bring us language and say, this is the language. I mean, if this ends up in a charter, we're gonna have to write a charter that actually describes the board. We're gonna have to give the responsibility of the bank. I mean, this is gonna be deep crap for the charter to do.
What's next meeting?
Public bank, meeting yet. Oh, no, we don't have a meeting on that because we are gonna have to set up.
They didn't have a meeting yet?
Well, we've already had.
I'm looking at all the lobbies already showing
No,
up.
next meeting.
Yeah, we've only had 2 or 3 meetings, but
Okay.
we didn't set dates for that one. Because it's based on, I think, getting additional people that Nelson needs given. Nelson is the driver.
There's a professor in Colorado who's going to explain it, so.
And he did speak on it last time, but I think what needs to happen is either we have a banking expert who's neutral that will come up and tell us what type of language we could put together. Because, I really don't know the language to put together for this. It's an area I don't know anything. And the 3 of us really want to do something. It's not like we're saying no. It's just we don't know what to do. So it's a quagmire.
I guess I'm curious, you said, was it Dakota?
North Dakota.
North Dakota for 100 years? That's probably a good place to look at.
It's mainly an agricultural type banking system because it had failed back in 1919 or so. And it's very small, but it's a very
Everything
small.
failed back then. Okay, wasn't that the great?
No, it wasn't.
Great
Before that, they were having problems. Then the Great Depression, which was hit them, the dust bowl killed them. But North Dakota's total population is less than Orange County. Not deal. So it's not. But anyways, then we just had we had the last business meeting of the year. We are canceling the December meeting, and we're going to start having 2 meetings a month starting in January because we're going to start rolling out from the committees. We did form a new committee. I can't remember what committee I said yes to. We did something, but I said yes. I'm on that. I'm on the 5th committee now. The thing that happened that was annoying, and we had Gabby Mitch who made a presentation from something, and what happened, and I didn't realize until after the meeting, we had
Didn't May make a presentation on the transportation thing?
the transportation fee. We know, okay, she did a presentation of doing a fee, and a lot of the board members supported it, and I guess the chair and one other person is going to study the legality of what we can do. Now, Hillsborough passed a half-cent via the charter. That was legal, but you can't tie the hands of the board. So we got to explore the language that we need to actually execute that. So the boss and chair, and I think Tom, who's the attorney from District 2.
Wait, transportation class?
The transportation,
Like the one that the mayor talked class and failed?
yes. But this is a half-cent proposal. The citizens proposed a half-cent.
Oh, so she thinks it's the price point will work?
No, it's not that. It's just, we can't tell.
Problem is that we didn't, like, I voted no because it wasn't going towards public transportation. It was also going towards road projects to support more development.
Yes, exactly. And the point that we're struggling with as a charter is we're restricted not to direct the commission on how to spend the money. We can actually pass a tax. We can actually do that. Supreme Court supported that. But
The only thing I would say though is I would prefer to continue with the board because then we could put together a transportation spending
but what
plan
we could do,
for the money that it's connected with, so then the voters are voting on that plan. And that's how Seminole County got theirs passed.
and
But they had actual, like, this is what we're spending.
if
the
you had
money
a
on.
mayor that actually would believe that and not do what he did, which was set up 3 sets of pockets, and he freely was going to move that money. It was obvious during the negotiation that had no credibility, and that's why many of us did not support that whole thing. And went down the flame.
But if the charter review
We might be able to do something.
commission, if you all pass it, then that's all,
Well, we have to,
you know, that you can't say what the money's gonna be spent on.
we don't know exactly what's going to. it's something that we're gonna explore, and if, you know, if it's my point is I'm going to set up, so it's, that money's going to be directed by some type of charter language that restricts the transit. They ain't going to do roads, no way, I would never support another road in this county. We don't need more roads, we need some way to move more effectively. Either by bus, BRT, by rail, with something besides roads, because roads are at capacity in their family. So that's the one thing that we did pass. That's the one I said yes to, that I would be on that committee. So, but that's in study now with the legal and the chair and Tom, who is going to lead that effort. And he had a lot of experience. He was an attorney, actually, for the city, a landowner. He's a decent guy, so I think he'll do a good job. Saying yea or nay, that we have enough flexibility to do something. The other thing that went down in flames initially, that's not, it came back as a phoenix again, was Gabby Milch, and her and I have been working on this wetlands concept where we want to set minimum levels of wetland regulation in the county and municipalities, because seeing what the city of Orlando is doing and just nuking hundreds of acres of wetlands after they declare them urban, like they did on the Packing District now down in Lake Mona. So she made a pitch, and unfortunately, people got confused, and the motion failed. But our attorney said we can bring that back. So the Robert rule was not violated, so we're going to bring that back.
Yeah, Robert's rules doesn't prevent you from bringing stuff back that failed previously.
Yeah, so we can do that.
Robert rules about.
So we can do that. So we're gonna bring that back in January. I'm still trying to see, you know, Kelly and I are both still talking on trying to set up a financial department analysis group for the economic analysis group for the charter. I'd like to see something, but we don't know where to park that. That's our biggest thing. The comptroller's office is with a thought that the comptroller doesn't feel real comfortable about that under. I don't know where to put it. You know, I had written up a charter thought on it, and you know, I have a way that we can actually appoint someone, be it through the constitutional officers, and that so the BCC has no oversight on that, because we really truly need a financial branch now.
It's really, because it's so unusual to watch a BCC meeting where the comptroller says, somebody asks them for information, says, I don't have that data. But then the board still makes a vote without having the data, but there's no plan to get the data.
And that's
really,
and I, you know, I'm looking for ideals, and we gotta do this because it's either the end January or the end of or the beginning of February will be the last time that we can put any new motions. We're coming up to the end dates, so we need to start.
Was there something that we had?
So if and you know, if,
Regarding the CRC.
Yeah, was there a project they were like making seriously? Remember we were going through a list of projects?
I mean, you're gonna have to do that in January. If you have a list, then get with me and let's sit down and talk and write up something and get on the agenda. You have to be there about 15 days prior to the meeting notice, get the meeting. But you can get X amount of time. If we do presentations, we're definitely very friendly to the public. We definitely want the input. So if you guys have something, bring it to us. We definitely would entertain it.
The list together.
Yeah,
The
definitely do that with
economic analysis, I think, is critical to this county, because I've seen you many times get really frustrated up there and other commissioners because you guys are operating in the blind. You're totally blind on the, oh, let's throw money out and see if it actually works. And then, you know, we don't know. I mean, you know, it's insane that we don't have this as a $7 billion budget per year. We don't have any ability, but we need to have an independent group. Where to park that? I'd love to hear ideas from anyone. Where can we create a separate organization?
Maybe we have a different office that cannot be moved under the mayor's office, by the way.
No, it can't be. I mean, part of the whole separation.
That, you know, that could just, well, they run numbers, they do research.
I mean, it could be on.
I was gonna say research and development. R&D, like a corporation. I don't know.
I mean, if you put it under the comptroller, that's independent, and it would be another arm. Now, after I've seen some of the presentations, there's definitely a tit for tat between the comps and the CPAs.
Okay, let's try to wrap this thing up. Any unfinished business?
Yes, so Sustany, Lake Picket North.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bob, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think with Eugene's discussion that you have both in the public sector and in the non-public sector, private sector, you have what's called an internal audit staff now, which does that kind of thing. We see it under Office of Management and Budget in the federal level as such, and a lot of that's, and some of that's on the legislative side, and then in the Treasury they have those kind of people too. But the comptroller has a lot of people that are very qualified and then can be trained in that kind of analysis. And given the fact that he's a separate constitutional officer and he seems to be relatively aggressive in doing his job, that you would have that kind of what Eugene is looking for, I think, and Kelly is looking for too, because you don't want to expand it any further and just create one more giant bureaucracy. Part of the situation with the bank is that under the original Constitution of the United States, each state, believe it or not, had its own currency and its own banking system as such, and the banks were chartered by the states, not by the federal government. And when we moved to the Federal Reserve System, that's what we have today, is the majority of the banks are nationally chartered and monitored by the controller of the currency and therefore the Federal Reserve System. So I think that kind of structure as such has already been experimented with, and I think you can get people that are trained in that area already. Probably UCF even has a program like that for training internal auditors in the accounting department, but it would make that transition, I think, for you a lot easier rather than sort of flailing around the way you are now. And I understand why, but it's just experience, and that's what I've experienced in my 30-some years in the business world as such, and it's worked well. It's worked well if you have an independent office, and I think you have one in the controller of the currency as such. The controller's office that we have right now, set up in Florida.
So, Bob, would you see as a separation of power issue? Currently, OMB is under the mayor's control. Do you see that potentially being a better place to put that under the control of the BCC directly?
Yeah, you do have that. You do have that problem as such, and I think that you guys are going to have to redo the mayor's office at some point. But
I mean, that's the conversation that we're having right now. So, I mean, one of the thoughts I was going to like push is OMB should be under the budget. In my book, comes out of the legislature, not the executive branch. They can propose a budget, but the actual budget should be coming out of the BCC. And OMB could be the function that develops that. You know, you're a federal guy too, so we used to do pop cycles and all that, and that's how we developed our schedule, our budgets over their fiscal year.
Actually, no, Eugene. The federal budget comes out of the executive branch, the office of the president. That's what's presented in the State of the Union address. Usually, with the State of the Union address as such, the budget is handed out at the same time, and that document comes out of the Treasury as such. The OMB is there to analyze what's presented to them, and obviously they can present alternatives or change or do a lot of other things, but the legislature has its own research organization as such that does parallel what the executive has, and you're going to have, yeah, you're going right. Well, no, Congressional Budget Office, OMB, is not the originator of the federal budget. That's done out of the Treasury. They look at it and say, do they agree with it or disagree with it? What's politically feasible, blah, blah, blah. And you're getting to that point already in the size of Orange County and the complexity of Orange County that you're going to move more and more towards that. And a lot of states have that too. California, I think, is one that comes to mind off the top of my head.
The BCC doesn't possess that ability today. They don't have the ability to have their own congressional budget office. Right now, OMB is under the mayor, and they're flying in the dark, essentially, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, but a lot of those issues that you're talking about are coming up because they don't have that kind of staff to do that kind of work. Emily can't call up somebody and say, hey, can you do an analysis on this or that or whatever, like she was talking about what she did with TDT and going out to Las Vegas and looking at that. She doesn't have that capability, and that's what you're going to need, because that's the complexity of what Orange County is growing into. And if the value, if 2050 is any closer, Vision 2050 is any close to reality, you're moving more and more and more towards that. As you have more and more people, so, it becomes more and more complex.
The right language for the separation of powers, and I got to push for some of this stuff. So you and I need to have a conversation about, do we put an OMB or we fight for some congressional budget office, some version of that be under the VCC's control? Because VCC, is weak right now. They don't have the operational capacity to really ask the questions they need to be doing. Because I've been told many times they're the keeper of the budget. So they don't even have the knowledge of the budget besides what's being presented by the executive branch to them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's what I'm saying is right. What we're looking at right now, the only people that really have it anywhere close to it is people in the controller's office as such. And even they aren't directly involved in that. They're indirectly involved as such. But like I say, the accounting profession is moving towards that, towards internal audit, and that effectively becomes what the controller's office does in some aspects right now, limited aspects right now. So do you expand the controller's office and the comptroller's office? I'm sorry. Do you expand the controller's office and give it more power, or do you set up a separate group within the executive? They're totally under the control of BCC rather than a constitutional officer as the controller is now.
Bob, I'm going to take this to the sideline because it's getting late. So you and I need to talk. We need to come up with some language, and I need some supporters to come in and fight with me because I'm one to vote on that. And we don't have the votes right now.
Yeah, Kelly, we need to get somebody from UCF. Kelly's got to get somebody from the accounting internal audit operation.
So we need to have a little conference call on the sideline. So I'm going to move this meeting forward to the next unfinished business.
Right. Okay.
So, thank you, Bob.
And to agree on says to me, like, ignore it. So that's a development we've been fighting for now, like 15 years, 12, 13 years. Out on the east side, and right now we're having a lot of issues. So the first one is the community meeting, which was in the school cafeteria, no air conditioning, no mic, the loud machine running. Maria Cahill, the case planner, insisting that the meeting went forward, and then we were supposed to get a second community meeting, but I don't know what happened during that meeting.
I hijacked it.
Oh, the Vision 2050. Yes, so we lost a bunch of the people. We got important feedback on Vision 2050, but then we had the flyers that came out in the mail had the wrong math, and then they corrected it, and the math was still wrong. Now, to make all the matters all the more worse, so the GROW came in with about a $300 million price tag on it. Okay, this one's even more expensive. I asked Olin Hill for the final infrastructure number, and staff said that they have no way of calculating it. They can't calculate it because they can't anticipate the additional costs of like the fire station, the fire trucks, so they can't put that all together apparently, or it would take too much time to get all of the information from all the different departments. But I also learned from an internal informant in the planning department that this is a highly contentious case. A lot of them are saying, why can't we just admit that we made a mistake? And Alberto Vargas and John Weiss insisting that the integrity of the planning department is at stake if they don't recommend it, because they've recommended in the past similar applications. So some of the staff came forward and said every application is looked at as an individual application, not 10 years worth of applications. And they said that there's county precedent to do that. It was still pushed though by Alberto and John Weiss. And apparently now, we also know, according to public record, that there's a $20 billion deficit in Orange County for roads, that by 2030, according to the transportation plan, 70% of our roads will be upgraded. The $26 million that was appropriated to the Lake Pickett roads is went into the general fund and has been spent, so it's not there. And now John Weiss indicates that they need Lake Pickett North to go through because the money is not there for the roadways for the growth.
That's the excuse they used for approving the growth first place.
Yeah, it was the public-private partnership for roads, right? That's what they said. We need the money to fix the roads. So all of these
But
things.
the thing is, that just makes roads worse.
The worst, I can't even believe this, but they have had an illegal borrow pit operating on their property for 5 years. The county tried to shut down, the state tried to shut down. People have been like constantly calling the EPD. Finally, they got a cease and desist. The operation is still in full steam ahead. Every day there's trucks going in. They're illegally burying debris in the ground. It's caused groundwater contamination of the Lehigh River. They've also excavated out of the river so that it has caused a terrible pollution of, what is it, the tamarind? Tannic acid has come up. And additionally, staff said we can't recommend this. And they said, well, we can take those parcels out. So here you have Sesame claiming to be the environmental savior development. This business partner has an illegal borrow pit on it that has contaminated the water, the groundwater, illegally infilled a class 1 wetland. It's completely gone, the wetland's gone. And their staff is recommending approval for Transmo with all these violations on the land, just because the developer cut it out. But it's not illegal. It's not like
Ownership is still under the system.
still under the same
It's under
people.
It's still owned by the same person, but they just push this property, which we have a similar situation on Lake Underhill where that dump was legally put in back in the 60s, which now is a mess down there because the road goes up and up. And it's how many millions of dollars now we're paying 60 years later to fix that problem.
Additionally, staff is not requiring, they took out 90 acres of the illegal borrow pit, but then they didn't require them to remove that from the Lake Pickett study area. It's just from this application. So they can come back at a later time and ask for 6 homes on average and actually get a much larger density. But staff is positioning this as a decrease in density because they lost 50 units because they lost 91 acres for the illegal borrow pit. So they can fix the land and then come back and get almost 600 more homes. And then it gets even bigger.
First thing,
So we're,
Gordon's really upset by it.
I think that the community is, but so in the 11th hour and 59 minutes, Sesame pulled their application from the PNC meeting because staff was telling them, hey, you don't have enough T2 in it. And so, which is the lowest density that they have. So they pulled their application and now they're asking PNC board members to either do it on the 14th of December or the 21st. And if it's the 21st, I can guarantee, 14th, we won't probably have many people because it's so close. The 21st, even I won't be here. I've been coming to all these meetings for 10 years. So I think it's just all a way to screw the community over again.
Is there any way the commissioner can continue it or push for it to be on a later date, not in December?
Well, that's Gordon's meeting, so maybe Gordon.
I talked to Gordon about, he's very upset about the special treatment And he said, you know, in everybody else's world, if you miss a deadline, there's a consequence. You miss the deadline, you're out.
It's like Orange
But in
County's
their
working for them.
world, they keep making exceptions. So they're still able to continue to apply and apply and apply. And even with open land violations and even infilling the type 1 wetland.
Wait a second. Lake Picket North, didn't staff deny, or didn't the staff recommend denial on that one?
No, this is what I'm telling you, they're recommending approval. I just found out
Are
on
you
Friday.
sure? Are you sure? No, back then they
Back
did.
then, they initially did. I think
Yeah,
said
they,
denial.
back then they recommended denial.
No, staff recommended both of them to go through. In 2013, yeah, they recommended
One
both.
of the problems with that I'm seeing is the relationship, the person pushing this hardest has gotten too close and it's become their project, and it's a religious thing now. That they want this project through because they've been working so long on this project to get it through. And the county now is becoming the promoter of the project. And that's a problem. I think that's a real problem for an ethical issue.
They're
And
no longer unbiased.
they're not biased. They're no longer doing their job. And I think that's a problem when the county is basically working to try to get something done for a developer. And they got too close to the problem.
The whole, I mean, with a $20 billion deficit across all of Orange County to repair our roads, the last place they should be recommending construction is in the rural area where it saves you money to not have people on the roads.
Because the one thing that will happen, as we all would agree, if Suspendee goes through, that easement under the utility line from McCullough Road will be completed and will connect to 419, and that will open up all the rest of East Orange County. We know that's going to happen because.
Well, the thing is with Vision 2050.
Right.
So
But that's
taking out actually Lake Picket North out of that study area is dependent on whether Sesame gets approved.
But then if they get denied, then you'd have to make a motion immediately to strike them from map overlay 22.
because right now with the
Because all they have is an overlay.
with the rural boundary stuff, and this is why Deseret is making a motion and move on something, because they have no legal bounds. Everything they have, Suspendee including, it's a wannabe thing. They don't have any legal ability yet. It's a color on a map.
That's why it's so important to get what we got with Vision 2050, because the way Alberto was pushing it before, he wanted to develop all of it.
And those
With villages.
And we were able to stop them by having the community meetings, because they didn't have community engagement before.
you might do a community meeting, something to get the people fired up in the end.
But we already got what we wanted for Vision 2050.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
the board agreed to it. The only thing we didn't get was Lake Picket
the
North.
problem with that is there's maps in it that show the color of Suspendee along the road and also the DRI not DRI, the wannabe down by Lake Nona. Those are actually maps on map.
When Vision 2050 comes back, we need to get,
Those maps are in there. There are maps in there that actually show that. And
because it's part of the growth center right now.
because when
Only Lake Picket North and South though, not everything else.
Yeah, but I mean, if we need to get north, we need to get them out.
because right now, my argument as
But that's dependent on whether like sustained passes or.
Right.
so right now, my argument in the rural boundary is anything that has legal abilities today is excluded from our rural boundary. So Sustain gets it, they're going to have that red line around them too, and they can do what they want to do with that under normal zoning rules that you guys operate. It won't be the special 80% rule. So that's why it's
So
really
they'll have to
difficult.
follow whatever is in the Vision 2050, which is different than what's in there now. I believe, even so,
It's
I
not
could be wrong, the Lake Picket, I think would stay the same.
like,
They could get south and stay the same.
I mean, they already got their
We just
legal.
go up, scoop them up, move north and everything.
And we do have to get moving.
Yeah.
What's next?
A quick note.
Oh, you have announcements?
No, are there any new business or announcements?
I have one announcement. Valerie down at Split Oak had told me that, said that Split Oak is coming up on the FWC agenda on 12/5 at 8:30 a.m. And they're looking at the Split Oak for development for the road again. So that question is coming up.
That's the Florida Wildlife Quarter.
Yeah, it's the members split up, we voted not to go through the person that the BCC said okay with it. And now FWC is one of the voting members on that, and they're addressing that. And I have something I can forward it. Just
Do they know that the voters of Orange County voted no?
I don't know if they care. FWC, I got this memorandum. I'll forward it to you. I'll just forward it to you on right now, and you can print it. This is what she sent me. So I'll send it to you, Emily. Thing right now. But I just sent it to you, so I won't go into more detail. But there's a meeting at 8:30. I just got this today, and I haven't read it, obviously, but it's coming up again. It's everything comes up in December.
Is there anything else?
Anything else? Nope. All right.
Our next DPAC meeting will be December 5th, right here again, beginning at 6 p.m. Is it easier for you all to get here if we start at 6:30?
So what is that mean? Is that mean in the morning, the FWC?
Yeah, it's at 8:30 in the morning.
I just want to make sure.
Is it easier for you guys to be here if we start at 6:30 instead? And is everyone okay with that date, December 5th?
Maybe in Tallahassee for committee weeks, but
I should be back.
Oh, good luck.
That's my paleo dig day, so I will hopefully be back by then. My fun day. My fun day. I get to dig up ancient animals.
I have to go home for my son.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. All right, we're going home. Good night. Thank you, everyone.